Assets only, no liabilities.
You can either use your paycheck to build your wealth or to just pay your bills. And most Americans are doing it wrong. I'll show you. This is how the majority of Americans statistically manage their finances. Let's assume that you make, as a household, $60,000 a year, which is $5,000 a month. Now, who's the first person that you're gonna pay? It's not Chipotle and it's not Amazon. It's the government. Because if you're working a job, they want to make sure they get paid first through taxes, and these taxes are often taken right out of your paycheck before you even see the money. So after taxes, you're probably going to be left with around $4,000 a month. Now let's go through your expenses. You find a nice basic apartment, nothing crazy, for $1,500 a month on rent. Then let's call it another $500 a month on all of your utilities. That's your gas, your electricity, your water, your internet, and your renter's insurance. Another $550 a month on your car payment, plus your gas, plus your car insurance, plus the oil changes and all the maintenance. Another $500 a month on all of your debt payments, because the average person has a decent amount of debt, which could be your credit card debt, your student loans, and every other debt that you have. Another $500 a month on food, because you gotta eat and eggs are expensive. This is all of your groceries, and you're eating out at restaurant costs a month. And then an additional $525 on everything else. This is you buying your clothes. This is you buying your furniture. This is you buying gifts for your friends or your family. This is you going on vacation. This is you going to the movies. Everything else that you have, I'm just lumping it here with an additional $525 a month. Now, let's do the math. You make $5,000 a month. After taxes, you get to keep $4,000 a month. And then you have a total of $4,025 a month in expenses, which means you are left with a negative $25 a month balance. And that means you have no money in case your car breaks down. You have no money to pay for your health insurance, because I'm assuming that all of your health insurance is paid for by your employer and you have to pay nothing out of pocket for your health coverage. I'm assuming that you never go to the gym. I'm assuming that you're never going to put money aside to get married. I'm assuming that you're never going to put money aside as a down payment for a house. And I'm assuming that you're putting no money aside to invest, to build your wealth. Now you can start to see the problem. Now here's the real catch that most people don't learn until it's too late. It's not your income that will determine if you become wealthy or not. It's what you do with your income. And that's why in this video, I'm gonna go over the 5 things that you need to do in this order to not end up like this, so you can build your wealth, but also build your wealth faster. The first step is you gotta systemize your money. The first mistake that so many people make in this situation: from my male followers, I drew a mustache, which in my native language Punjabi is called a much. From my female followers, I drew a braid, which in my native language Punjabi is called a gut. The problem that so many people have is you make money and then you spend money. You have no system for your money. But that ends today, because I want you to create 3 different buckets for your money, or in a practical setting, I want you to create 3 different bank accounts. This way, anytime you get paid, your money is going to be divided into 3 different places. Number 1 is going to be your spending money. Number 2 is going to be your investing money. And number 3 is going to be your saving money. And the reason why you want to put this in 3 different bank accounts is so you do not accidentally spend your investment money, or you don't accidentally spend your savings money. It's kind of like why the government takes your taxes before you actually see the money. The reason why is because the government knows that if you were supposed to pay the government at the end of the year, you would have probably already spent the money and the government's not going to get paid. Because for the average American, you're going to spend whatever amount of money you have in your bank account. And so the government does not rely on you to be smart with their money and to budget for your taxes. So they want to take that money before you even see it. So you kind of want to do the same thing. You want to allocate your money aside for your investments and your savings before you even see it. Put it in a different bank account. That way now you have money to invest, which is going to make you wealthy. You have money to save, which is going to protect you against an emergency. Now you might be saying, well, Jaspreet, how much money do you do in each? Well, the simple rule of thumb that you can follow is a 75-15-10 plan, which says for every dollar that you earn from here on out, 75 cents is the maximum that you can spend, 15 cents is the minimum you invest, 10 cents is the minimum that you save. And you might say, well, Jaspreet, that sounds pretty hard. You expect me to live off of 3/4 of every dollar that I earn? I'm already struggling as it is right now. How am I supposed to live off of so much less? Well, I want you to think of it this way. The government, if they were to raise your taxes tomorrow, what are you going to do? You're going to complain and cry and scream, and then you're going to find a way, because if you don't, you're going to go to jail. Treat it the same way. I want you to tax yourself. Now, not so you make the government rich, but so you make yourself rich. You're taxing yourself by automating your money to go into different bank accounts. Now, here's the thing. You have to have 3 different bank accounts. That way you don't accidentally spend this money and you want this to be automated. Most banks are going to allow you to create these automatic transfers. If you know how much money you're making every single month, banks will allow you to create an automatic transfer from one bank account to the other. If they're charging you money to do this, get a new bank. Now, here's something you want to know, especially when it comes to your savings. You want to have a separate bank account just for emergency savings. Emergency savings is there to protect you in case you lose your job. It's there to protect you in case your car breaks down. It's there to protect you in case your kid gets sick or something bad happens. This is there as protection, so when something bad happens, you don't got to go into credit card debt to fund that expense. And you want to have somewhere between 3 to 12 months worth of expenses. Now, the amount of money you actually put aside is going to depend on where you are in your financial journey. We recently hired somebody in my Briefs Media team who was young, in his 20s, and he was asking me, why do I need such a high amount of savings? He doesn't have a wife, he doesn't have any kids, doesn't have a lot of financial responsibilities, asking, why can't I just take this money and invest it? And you're right. If you're younger, you don't need a year's worth of expenses put aside because you don't have the same financial responsibilities as somebody in their mid-40s who has kids, who's maybe taking care of their parents, who's got a lot more financial responsibilities, and maybe can't take on a whole lot of risk right now. When you're younger, you can be a little bit more aggressive, don't need as much savings. So figure out where you are on your journey in life, figure out what your risk tolerance is, and see if you need 3 to 12 months worth of expenses, figure that out, and then save that money and put it aside and don't touch it. Yeah, it'll lose value to inflation, but it's there to protect you against an emergency. It's not there to make you rich. I'm going to be talking about how you invest your money a little bit later in this video, but just know that if you are an investor, my team at Briefs Media also publishes a free daily newsletter called Market Briefs, where we break down what's happening in the economy, the stock market, the housing market, the crypto market, and the global economy into a fun and witty and easy to read newsletter. We have hundreds of thousands of investors that are reading Market Briefs every day. It's a super fun read. I read Market Briefs every morning. If you have not joined it yet, I got the link for you to join for free down in the description below. And I'm also going to be talking about how do you spend your money smartly a little bit later in this video. So now that we've broken down part 1, which is systemize your money, let's talk about part number 2, which is getting a raise. The mistake that so many people make is they assume that if I make more money, all my financial problems will be solved. That means if you are in this situation right here with a mustache or the braid, and you go from making $60,000 a year living broke, and now you get a raise to $70,000 a year, all your financial problems will be solved. Because now not only do you have money to pay all of your bills, you'll also have some extra money every single month. Now you can save your money, now you can invest your money, and you got no stress. But I have seen this play out time and time and time again. I've been teaching financial education for a long time now, and let me tell you, what ends up happening to most people, statistically, in this situation, you go out and you make more money, and then, boop, you got more expenses. You go out and buy a nicer car. You start buying the organic blueberries. You start buying the organic eggs. You take another trip to Disney World. And now all of a sudden, you thought you would have an additional $10,000 a year to invest and save, and now you're in a deeper hole than you were before. This is why so many people making 6 figures a year are broke, with little to no investments, with little to no hope. Because as you make more money, banks also look at you as a more qualified borrower, and they want to lend you more money. But not anymore. Now you have a system for your money, and when you have a system for your money, now you have the most power when you go out to earn more money. Because here's what can happen now. If you go out and you earn more money and you've already systemized your finances, you're already taxing yourself, right? To put money aside to invest, you put money aside to save. Well, now what happens is as you earn more money, whether it's an additional $1,000 a month or an additional $10,000 a month, as you earn more money, you can spend a little bit more money, but you're also going to be investing more money, and you're also going to be saving more money because you have these ratios, 75, 15, 10, or whatever number you choose to follow. You have this system where as you earn more money, you're always saving more, you're always investing more. Plus, you also get to spend a little bit more as well. Now, there's a ton of content on the internet that will help you on how do you actually get a raise, but the best piece of advice that I can give you as an employer is show your value. When you become more valuable, it's much easier to justify getting a raise. So if you want to make more money, don't just go in and say, hey, can I make more money? To do the exact same thing that I was doing yesterday. Say, hey, not only am I doing my normal job, but I'm also doing X, Y, and Z, and I'm also going to start doing this as well because I'm adding so much more value, because I'm adding so much more value to the company, because I'm making the company so much more money, can I get this much more money? Now it's much easier for you to sell that raise. But there's a ton of content out there. If you don't want to do it through your job, you can also work to get a side hustle, start your own side business, do whatever you want want to do. That way we can make some more income. But now the key again is you're making more money, so you have more money to invest, you have more money to save, and then you have a little bit more money to spend as well. Step number 3 is I want you to be smart with your debt. The question that everybody who has debt asks is, should I invest my money into something like the stock market, or should I pay down my debt? And the answer is it depends. It depends on where you are in your journey, and it depends on what kind of debt you have. Because it's a very different situation when you have credit card debt or payday loans that are costing you 20-25% a year versus a mortgage at 3.5% a year. So let's break this down. When you invest your money into something like the stock market, a good return is something around 10% a year on average. The average credit card debt in America today at the time we record in this video is around 24% a year. Now, I know I'm just a random guy on YouTube, but if we do some basic math, what I can tell you is if you take your money and put it into the stock market as opposed to paying down this debt, it's a losing transaction. So if you have any sort of high interest debts, you want to attack that before you worry about investing. So if you have high interest debts like credit card debts, pay that off before you worry about investing your money, because that high interest debt is skinning you alive. Even if you take this money and you put it into the stock market and you get an above average return of 15%, you would have gotten a better return if you paid off the credit card debt 1 year early, because it is a guaranteed 20-25% a year. Now here's the thing, if you have credit card debt, this is the time that you need to be as aggressive as possible to pay that credit card debt down, because this credit card debt, these high interest credit card debts, are skinning you alive financially. It's the reason why credit card companies get to fly around in those private jets. It's the reason why they have these big, beautiful buildings. It's because people are paying insane interest rates to the credit card companies to finance yesterday's purchases. Now, we can't go back in time to change what you did yesterday or last year, but you can change what you're doing now. That is working to save some extra money, working to earn some extra money, that we can attack the credit card debt and never have to worry about it again. One thing that has also worked well for people that have credit card debt is moving some of this credit card debt to a 0% APR credit card. That way you get a little period of time, maybe 12, 18 months, depending on what the credit card is, to attack the credit card debt with no interest. That way you can just pay down the principal balance and not have to worry about all that extra interest. But the key for this to work is you want to do this when you are serious about paying down the credit card debt. You don't want to just take that balance and transfer it over and then rack up the credit card debt even higher. I mean, you're defeating the whole purpose. You want to do it strategically. That way you can get a little bit of a break from the interest and then attack the credit card debt very hard by working to save, working to earn more, and pay down as much of that principal balance as fast as possible. Now, if you want to see what might be a good credit card, I've worked with my sponsor, Finance Buzz, to put together an article of some of my favorite credit cards, from 0% APR credit cards to cashback credit cards to travel credit cards to business credit cards. I like credit cards. If you want to read the article and see what might be a good credit card for you, I will link that for you down in the description. That way you can see if it might be a good fit for you. But what if you have lower interest rate debt? Say you have a 3% mortgage or a 4% mortgage or a 5% mortgage. Now, doesn't it make sense for you to take your extra money and invest it into the stock market to try to get a 10% return, because 3, 4, or 5% on your mortgage is a lower interest rate than the stock market? And the answer is, it depends. It depends on you, because the reality is taking the money, putting it into the stock market is a risk. You might get 10%, you might get 20%, but you might also get 3%. You might get 0%, you might get negative 5%. So there's no guarantee on what your return will be when you put the money into the stock market. But if you pay down your mortgage at 4%, well, that's a guaranteed 4% return every year that you don't have to pay that mortgage. So now you get to decide what's your risk tolerance. If you are interested in taking more risk to try to grow that money faster, then yeah, take the money, put it into the stock market. If you just want to be free and not have to worry about money again and not have to make any payments, pay down the debts. See, there's not always a one-size-fits-all story, because a lot of people on the internet want to tell you, this is what you need to do. The answer is it depends, because you're different than me, your risk tolerance is different than me, your goals are different than me, which is why you never want to blindly listen to a random guy on YouTube. Now that we've moved through number 1, systemizing your money by creating 3 different bank accounts and allocating money to save, invest, and spend. And now that we've moved through number 2, which is working to increase your income, that we have more money to spend, invest, and save. And now that we've also moved through number 3, how to pay off your debt strategically, let's move on to number 4, which is how do you invest this money smartly. Now, I've talked about how the average stock market return has been around 10% a year, and that's based off of you investing your money into something called the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is a group of the 500 largest companies in the stock market. This is not you going out and trying to find the next Amazon, the next Nvidia, the next Apple, the next Tesla, because that's more risky. And a lot of people try to do that without actually understanding the risks and without actually understanding what the heck they're investing in. So you want to understand now, what is the game that you want to play? Do you want to actually be an investor? Or do you just want to try to chase a hot return? It's kind of like when you think about sports betting. Why do people get so attracted to sports betting or any sort of gambling? Because the whole idea is if I invest $100, I could potentially win $500, $1,000, $3,000, depending on whatever is going on in the game. Investing is not like that. Real investing is not taking $100 and then turning it into $500 in 6 months. That's not investing. Investing is taking less risk, but working to strategically grow that money year after year after year, decade after decade after decade, and consistently working to see that money grow. It's less exciting, less attractive, but you can actually build strategic wealth when in gambling, the house always wins. So if we talk about the S&P 500, what we know is that over the last 100 years, the stock market, the S&P 500, has grown by an average of 10% a year. Does that mean that the stock market always goes up? No. We've seen the stock market fall, we've seen market crashes, we've seen recessions, we've also seen market booms. But on average, we have seen the stock market, the S&P 500, rise by around 10% a year. If you wanted to just invest into something like the S&P 500, there are funds that give you exposure to that. That way you don't have to go out and buy all 500 of those companies and then manage your portfolio. I'm going to give you a couple examples. I'm not telling you what to invest in. For example, there's a fund called SPY, SPY. If you buy one share of this ETF, this fund called SPY, you can do it on pretty much any stock brokerage, you're getting exposure to the S&P 500. So if you buy one share of this, you're buying a little piece of the 500 largest companies in the stock market. If one of the companies, let's say Tesla, were to go bankrupt, it will get kicked out of the S&P 500 and be replaced by another stock, and you wouldn't have to do anything. It's automatic because you own a piece of that fund. This is one way to invest your money, and the way you win here is through what I call ABB, always be buying. You buy when markets are low, you buy when markets are high, you buy when markets are sideways, you buy when it's raining, you buy when it's sunny outside, you buy no matter who's in the White House, you're always buying because the A in ABB is always be buying. And you set up an automatic system where every week, or every 2 weeks, or every month, you pick the cadence, you're buying more. Doesn't matter what's happening, you just keep buying no matter what. Everyone always comes up with some sort of funny fairy tale story. Well, what if this, and this happens? Should I still buy? ABB means always be buying. You keep buying no matter what for weeks, months, decades. That's how you win. Now, some of you might say, well, Jaspreet, that's cool and all, but I also like studying companies. I also like studying financials. I also like listening to earnings calls and reading financial statements because, well, that's what I like. If you want to do that, well, that comes with more risk, more potential return. The key is potential return. Not guaranteed to get more returns, but it's potential. This is where now you can look into more niche opportunities. You try to find more niche companies, more opportunities there. Maybe you try to find the next Tesla, the next Amazon, the next Nvidia, because now you're actually digging into the research. You're looking into market shifts. You're looking into understanding, well, what is changing in the economy that I can invest in something that a lot of people are overlooking. This is cool. I have no problem with you doing that. The mistake that I see so many people make is they say, I want to be a long-term investor. I want to find the next big thing. Okay, cool. Then you start doing some digging on the internet. You come across some post on Reddit which says you need to buy this stock. Then you say, oh, that sounds cool because some random person on the internet says so. You go and buy it, and then the stock starts to go down after 2 weeks. And now you panic and you sell because you're worried that you're going to lose all of your money. See, there's a lot of things that went wrong here. Number one is you didn't actually do any research. You have to actually, number one, understand the shift. Why is this industry getting better? And then you have to analyze the company. Why is this a good company inside of this shift? If you say, I want to invest in data center companies because data centers are growing because of artificial intelligence, all right, cool. Well, now you have to actually analyze the companies. There's a lot of different data center companies out there. There's a lot of different ways to play data centers. You could take a look at the energy companies that are providing energy to data centers. You could look into the real estate companies that own those data centers. You could look into the management companies that are managing those data centers. There's a lot of different ways to play it, but then you have to analyze the companies, look at their financials. Does this company have more assets than liabilities? Is this company's revenues growing? Are their profits growing? These are the types of analysis that you want to do. And then you want to actually be an investor, which is not get caught up in the emotions, because as somebody who owns a media company, what I can tell you is a lot of the traditional media is in the business of selling you hype because they just want to get clicks because that's how they get paid. And that emotion is what drives a lot of people to buy or sell when they shouldn't be. And so if you want to be an investor, remember, the goal is to be an investor, not get caught up in the emotions, because emotions are the enemy of profits. Now that we've covered how do you invest your money, let's also talk about now how do you spend your money smartly, which is one of those things that everyone thinks is so simple, but if it was so simple, why are so many people living broke, in debt, with no idea of how to build wealth? Because the reality is, what you want to do now is, number one, live within your means. And the mistake that a lot of people make is they assume that when I go out to buy a phone, I want to buy a $1,000 phone, that means I can afford the $50 a month payments. But that's very different from somebody who can actually afford the phone. Because in my mind, if I want to afford a $1,000 phone, that means I can afford that phone in cash without having to worry about the money. The whole $1,000 without having to worry about the money. In fact, for me, it's a little bit stricter. What I do is I follow a rule of 5, which is especially for luxuries, things that I don't need. That is, if I can't buy 5 of them, I can't afford 1 of them. Now you can start to see a different game. I'm not going there trying to worry about the payments. I'm going and try to actually buy the thing without having to worry about the payments. Because I don't want payments. Because those payments are making the banker richer. Especially when that thing is not putting any money in my pocket. If you're talking about buying a rental property, buying a business, then sure, it's a completely different discussion when it comes to debt. But let's not talk about that right now. We're talking about general liabilities. A lot of people are financing their clothes nowadays because you got buy now, pay later, or as I like to call it, broke now, poor later. And this is a game where it's very easy to finance whatever the heck you want. But if you want to build wealth, you can't keep making your banker richer to finance things that are making you broker. You have to use your money smartly. That means, number one, spend only what you're allowed to and stop financing things that are not paying you, which includes your car. Stop financing your car. Financing your car is a triple whammy. You're paying interest on something, whammy number 1, that is a depreciating liability, whammy number 2, which also has a limited time span, whammy number 3. Because that car is not going to last you forever. It's going to last you 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, maybe 20 years. If you're lucky, you got a nice Toyota. Well, eventually that car is not going to keep running. You're going to need another car. So when you're buying that car, treat it like a liability because it is losing value. And this means maybe you don't buy as nice of things right now. But the goal is for you to be able to buy whatever you want because of your investments and never have to worry about the price again. See, my goal for you isn't to live small for the rest of your life. It's for you to make a sacrifice for a period of your life. That way you can spend the rest of your life never having to worry about money again. But in order for you to do that, you can't keep doing what the majority of people do because the majority of people are broke, they retire broke, and they never ever have a chance to build wealth. You can't keep living like that if you want to live a life of actual wealth, and it starts with you using your paycheck the right way. It starts with you systemizing your paycheck. And this paycheck could be you running your business, it could be you from your job, doesn't matter how you're getting paid, you got to systemize your money. Once you systemize your money, now you can work to increase your income. Now, as you're working to increase your income, you can strategize how are you going to invest your money. Are you going to use this money to pay down debt or invest? Then we talked about number 4. Now that you know that, you can actually understand what are the different ways that you can invest. Are you just going to follow the ABB method and invest into the general stock market, into the economy? Or are you going to invest into more individual opportunities? Once you understand that, now you also have to know how do you spend your money smartly. That way you can be a wealthy-minded spender, a wealthy-minded person, because it's a lifestyle. It's not just something you do for 2 days or 6 months and then hope that you're going to have all this money in your bank account. That way you can live broke again. I want you to actually live a wealthy life. That way you never have to worry about money again. But it starts with you understanding how do you systemize your money.
It's a lot of good information, y'all. Let's get this money. Assets only, no liabilities.